My name is Evelyn Hart, and I'm 32 years old, the oldest daughter, the quiet one. Not the rebel, not the favorite, just the one who always figured things out on her own. Since I was a kid, I've learned how to show up without taking up space. I learned how to smile without feeling seen, how to be helpful, kind, responsible, and somehow still not enough. Let me ask you something. Have you ever watched love pass by you again and again and told yourself it's fine? Have you ever been in the room but not in the picture? This isn't about blame. It's about finally seeing the pattern for what it is and deciding quietly, firmly that it ends with you. If you've ever been the strong one, the reliable one, but deep down just wanted someone to choose you for once, stay. And if this story feels familiar, just leave a in the comments. That's all. I'll know you understand. That Christmas morning felt no different. Same tree, same lights. Same chill in the air that the heater bird never seemed to fix. The living room was warm but not really, more like polite. Controlled, like a place where you could sit for hours and still not feel home. Mom, Linda stood near the fireplace. She held a small gold-wrapped box in her hands, soft smile, velvet robe, the usual holiday pageant. Across from her, Sophie, my younger sister by 2 years, tilted her head just slightly and gasped before even touching the ribbon. That was her gift. The gasp, the performance she always knew how to give. Inside the box, a silver key in a velvet pouch. Mom's voice broke just a little. "We bought her a house," she whispered, eyes shining. I smiled, not from joy, but from habit. Because when you've played the same part for decades, your body remembers the script even when your heart doesn't. After the applause faded, after Sophie hugged them both, twirling that key like it was made of diamonds, Mom turned toward me. Her smile softened. Her voice lowered, like she didn't want the room to hear. "You'll understand someday," she said. Then she nodded to Dad Frank, who walked over silently. No eye contact, no smile, just a quiet motion. He placed a plain envelope in my lap, no bow, no card, just my name written in Mom's careful cursive. I didn't open it, not right away. It sat there, light as paper, but heavier than anything I'd held that morning. Around me, the room filled with a talk. Sophie was already dreaming about granite countertops and French doors. Mom dabbed her eyes, proud and glowing. And me, I sat there holding silence in my hands, thin, flat, and meant to disappear, just like the person they always expected me to be. I was 9 the first time I knew. Not thought, not wondered, knew. It was my birthday. I had baked my own cupcakes, chocolate slightly burnt, too much oil, not enough sugar. I remember thinking the batter looked thin, but no one checked. Mom helped half distracted. Sophie had ballet rehearsal and the kitchen couldn't smell weird afterward. That morning I came downstairs early. Smiling, hopeful, maybe there'd be a balloon, a card, a song. There wasn't. Just the smell of burnt toast. And Mom humming in the next room while brushing Sophie's hair. I stood there a long time, holding a plate of crooked cupcakes, waiting for something that never came. That was the day I stopped asking, stopped expecting, because even at 9 you learn not to reach if no one ever reaches back. It didn't just happen once, it became a rhythm. Sophie had a backyard party that same year. Pony rides, glitter balloons, even neighbors we didn't like came smiling wide with wrapped gifts and compliments. By middle school, I stopped hoping, stopped reminding people of dates, stopped setting myself up for silence. When I graduated with honors, Mom didn't come. Sophie had a regional dance competition. I got a text. "So proud. Sorry we couldn't be there. Go get 'em." At the state science fair, first place working hydroelectric dam, Dad arrived late, left early. He had a golf tee time with someone important. But when Sophie landed a 30-second shampoo commercial, they hosted a dinner party. Champagne, framed photo of the ad, guests clapping like she'd won a Nobel. The pattern wasn't hidden. It was printed, framed, and hung on the walls of our house. Senior year, academic awards night. I had worked harder than ever. 2 part-time jobs, a perfect GPA, essays written until my fingers cramped and my eyes blurred. They called my name for the top scholarship. The auditorium was full, the applause loud. I walked across the stage, heart racing, and I looked for her. Mom. Front row. She was there, but not clapping, just scrolling through her phone, her face lit by the screen, not by me. When I stepped down, still holding the warm certificate, she looked up and said, "Well, at least she's good at something." It cut sharper than any silence. People around us heard. No one said a word. No one needed to. Some things don't need to be loud to leave a mark. They just need to arrive when your heart is wide open. With Sophie, everything was effortless. She didn't need to try. She just had to show up. When she posted a photo, Mom shared it like it was front page news. When she got a new haircut, Dad said she looked like a star. She once cried on cue during a school play. They talked about it for weeks, said she was born to perform, born to shine. Me, I stayed late at tutoring, volunteered at food drives, wrote editorials for the school paper. No champagne, no framed moments, just quiet nods. Half-heard praise like background music you're not meant to notice. It wasn't that they ignored me completely. It was worse. They saw me, but never looked long enough to remember what they saw. There's a moment I go back to more than I should. It was small, quiet, but it stayed. Senior year. The auditorium was full again. I'd been nominated for an academic excellence award. I didn't expect much. I had learned not to. But they called my name. The top honor. People clapped. Some even stood. I walked up, accepted the plaque. I remember its weight. Cool, smooth, real. I scanned the crowd. And there she was, Mom, sitting in the front row. Not clapping, not smiling, just scrolling through her phone like none of it mattered. When I stepped down, she finally looked up. Her voice was light but sharp. Well, at least she's good at something. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't pride. It was dismissal. That one line cut through applause louder than any silence ever could. For years, I wondered if I was just being sensitive. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe I expected too much. People said things like, parents do their best. You were the strong one. Maybe they just didn't know how to show it. I tried to believe them. Tried to explain it away, but favoritism doesn't whisper. It carves. It carves itself into birthdays and graduations, into living rooms and dinner tables, into every moment where love should have been louder. I kept track of the quiet moments, the missing hugs, the maybe next times, not to hold a grudge, but because I couldn't pretend I hadn't noticed anymore. That Christmas morning, watching Sophie hold a house key while I held a lifeless envelope, I stopped doubting myself. I stopped asking why. Because I already knew where I stood. And I knew something else too. This wasn't the time to speak. But the time was coming. Later that day, when the noise had softened and Sophie was still showing off her key, I opened the envelope. Slowly, carefully, like something fragile inside could still hurt me. Inside was one sheet of paper. No note, no card, no explanation. Just a printed job listing. An admin assistant role at a regional insurance office. Entry level, hourly pay. Near the bottom in Dad's stiff handwriting, block letters, sharp and tight, he'd written, "Thought this might be more your speed." I stared at it. Not angry, just still. The kind of stillness that comes when something breaks and you don't even flinch anymore. They hadn't forgotten me. They just didn't believe I was ever meant for more. It wasn't about the paper, or the job, or even the insult. It was about the certainty. The quiet, unwavering belief that I would never ask for more, that I wouldn't push back, that I'd smile like always and say thank you. They didn't give me less because they forgot. They gave me less because they thought I needed less, because I always managed, paid my own rent, packed my own boxes, picked up every call from the school nurse without help, without complaint. And maybe that's what stung the most. Not the absence of a gift, but the presence of a decision, one they made with complete confidence. They weren't being cruel. They were being consistent. And I was finally tired of earning my place in a family that gave Sophie hers for free. I hadn't planned on coming back, not after that Christmas, not after the envelope, but guilt has a way of dressing itself in softer words. It came through the phone in Mom's voice, sweet, tired, carefully layered with concern. She said Dad was struggling, that they needed help lifting boxes in the garage. She used words like family, just for the weekend, you've always been so helpful. It wasn't the request that got me. It was the way she said it, as if refusing would make me selfish, cold, ungrateful, as if decades of being overlooked could be wiped clean with one Saturday favor. So I said yes. Not because I wanted to, but because saying no still felt like breaking a rule I never agreed to follow. I drove the 4 hours home without music, just the hum of the road and a silence I knew too well. Dad's driveway looked exactly the same, edges clipped clean, hedges trimmed like always, a yard that never forgot its lines, The house smelled like it used to lemon polish, overcooked roast, and that faint burnt scent no one ever mentioned. Sophie wasn't there. "She's busy," Mom said with a sigh that somehow made it sound like her absence was my fault. I nodded, smiled just enough. We moved through the checklist, lifting storage bins, listening to complaints about Sophie's new boyfriend, pretending we were closer than we were. By 10 that night, I lay in the old guest room, the one I used to call mine. The walls still had my soccer trophies, but the space felt tighter, like it remembered how many things I'd swallowed in silence. I couldn't sleep. The room was too quiet, but not in a peaceful way. It felt like the silence was watching me. I got up, barefoot, careful not to wake the creaky floorboards. The house was dark. Every hallway exactly where I left it, but somehow unfamiliar, like a memory warped at the edges. I wandered without purpose, or maybe with one I didn't fully admit to myself. Then I saw it. Dad's office door slightly open. That alone was strange. He guarded that room like a vault. Always locked, blinds down, passwords on everything. But tonight it hung open, just enough to stir something in my chest. I stood there, still, listening. And then I stepped inside. The air in the office was still, heavy like it knew I didn't belong there. Dad's desk lamp was off, but the faint glow from the hallway spilled in, just enough to see. Papers stacked, folders lined up like soldiers, everything labeled in his sharp, tidy print. Behind the file cabinet, I saw it, the small gray safe, unlatched, unlocked. It felt wrong to look, but it felt more wrong to walk away. I knelt, slowly, hands steady, but my breath wasn't. Inside were rows of manila folders, bank statements, property deeds, tax returns, some old, some recent. Then I saw it, a white envelope sealed. On the front, "To be opened upon death," Dad's handwriting. My name wasn't on it, but something told me whatever was inside had everything to do with me. I broke the seal, hands shaking just a little. Not from fear, but from something older. Like a truth waiting too long to be heard. Inside was a will. Not the one they showed us years ago at that dramatic dinner when Sophie turned 21 and everything was split evenly. This one was different. My name came first. Next to it, a parcel number. A property I'd never heard of. No address, no photo. Just numbers and codes that meant nothing yet. I turned the page. There it was. A deed, purchased under my name. At first I thought it was a mistake. A misprint. But then I saw the signature. Mine. Except it wasn't. The slant was wrong. The R curled differently and my chest went cold. I stared at that signature longer than I should have. It was my name, but not my hand. The E was too sharp. The loop in the L was missing. Little things, but things I would never get wrong. I flipped through the rest of the folder. Attached to the deed, a bank authorization. Also signed. Also not by me. I kept going. Transfer records, trust accounts, lines of activity, all using my name, all without my knowing. It wasn't just that they kept something from me. It was that they built a version of me on paper without ever telling the real one. I sat there, knees on the carpet, documents fanned around me like pieces of someone else's life, except it was mine. And I had never been invited into it. I didn't say anything. Not that night, not the next morning. At breakfast, Mom poured my coffee with cheerful habit the same way she had for years, performing love but not seeing the person across from her. She asked if I'd found a real job yet, then moved on telling a long story about Sophie's podcast idea, something about lifestyle branding and authentic influence. Dad barely looked up from his toast. His silence felt practiced, like a man who knew how to ignore what he didn't want to face. I nodded, smiled when needed. Answered just enough. I played the role they had written for me long ago, the calm one, the helper, the afterthought who never caused a scene. But this time, every word I didn't say was a line I chose to cut. By noon, I was packed and ready to leave. I didn't make excuses, just said I had work to finish. No one asked what kind. No one offered to help. Mom hugged me lightly already mid-sentence about new curtains. Dad nodded once, still staring at the kitchen wall. On the drive home, I didn't cry. Didn't think of what I wished they'd said. I thought of the papers, the fake signature, the hidden property, the silence wrapped in legal tape. As soon as I got home, I pulled my credit reports, line by line, every loan, every account, every number tied to my name. I had ignored the signs for years because trusting them felt easier than asking questions I wasn't ready to hear the answers to. Now I was ready. It didn't take long. The address was right there, same parcel number from the will. A small house, nothing fancy, but legally mine. The trust that paid for it was tied to my social security number. The paperwork had gone through 6 years ago. 6 years. And no one ever told me. The deeper I looked, the stranger it got. Small transfers, account activity between family names, dates that matched moments I remembered but never understood. One account showed a deposit the same month Sophie's business launched. Another matched the year Dad started talking about downsizing. It was all there hidden in plain sight. But the house was real. A key had existed long before that gold-wrapped box. They just never intended for it to be mine. I didn't call my parents. I didn't confront anyone. I called a friend from college. She's a lawyer, specializes in estate law and family trusts. I didn't tell her the whole story, just the documents, laid out in neat rows like I was showing someone else's life. She called me back 2 days later. Her voice was calm, her words weren't. "Evelyn," she said, "if you wanted to pursue fraud, you'd have a case." But then she paused and asked gently, "That's not what you want, is it?" She was right. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want lawsuits. I wanted clarity. And then I wanted control. For once in my life, I wanted to be the one holding the full story, not the one left guessing while someone else rewrote the truth. We started digging, quietly, carefully. She helped me trace every file, every signature, every movement of money tied to my name. What we found didn't shock me, but it still hurt. There was more than just the house. A small investment account I never opened. A company listed under my initials. My name used to shelter family assets during Sophie's skincare launch. A web of transfers. Shifting funds between internal family entities. Everything legal, but only if you assume I agreed. I hadn't. It was all so neat. So well structured, like they'd planned the lie before I ever knew there was a question to ask. On paper, I was wealthier than I'd ever imagined, but none of it had ever felt like mine, because no one ever meant for me to know it existed. The worst detail came last, the one I wasn't ready for, the lake house, their pride, their getaway, the place they always said would stay in the family forever. It had been mortgaged. 3 years ago, used as collateral to fund Sophie's skincare line, the one that quietly failed. No announcement, no apology, just quiet panic wrapped in paperwork. Dad probably thought he could fix it, move the money back before anyone noticed. But he didn't. And the loan defaulted. The house was already flagged for auction. That's when I knew this wasn't just about neglect. It was about control. About who they were willing to risk everything for, and who they weren't. I didn't tell them. Not yet, but I couldn't let it go. Not the house, not the silence, not what it all stood for. So I found a way. I set up a shell company. My lawyer handled the paperwork. We used a proxy to submit the bid, an anonymous holding agent. It was clean. It was legal. It was mine. It took weeks, layers of filings, pages of signatures, this time all real. And then one day I held the deed in my hands, the lake house, their treasure, now under my name. Not as Evelyn Hart, the forgotten daughter, but as someone who had finally stepped out of the role they wrote for her. They didn't know. And for the first time in my life, that felt right. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't power. It wasn't even about the house itself. It was about history. About all the years I swallowed disappointment and called it understanding. About all the rooms where I stayed quiet so others could feel comfortable. Holding that deed wasn't triumph. It was clarity. Proof that I had seen it every inch of the favoritism, every silence disguised as fairness. And this time, I didn't absorb it. I didn't excuse it. I didn't let it pass like all the holidays and graduations before. For once, I chose not to be the one who made it easier for everyone else. They still didn't know. Mom kept texting about Christmas. Dad emailed me a job post again, and I stayed silent. But now my silence wasn't weakness, it was a decision. And the time to speak was getting close. Christmas came again. Same wreath on the front door, same chipped reindeer mugs in the kitchen, same air too dry, too warm, like the house was trying too hard to feel cozy. Sophie was already there. Cashmere sweater, soft smile, acting like the room owed her something. Dad stood near the fireplace, coffee in hand, scanning the room like a checklist. Mom floated in and out, humming off-key carols, asking no one in particular if the cinnamon rolls were done enough. I placed my gift under the tree. Plain white box. No ribbon, no tag, just wait. I smiled, not because I felt anything, but because I knew this time I wasn't the one pretending. The morning unfolded like a script we'd all rehearsed for years. Sophie unwrapped a designer handbag. She gasped on cue. Mom teared up, hands to her heart. Dad laughed softly, the kind of laugh that says, "We did good." There was a toast to new chapters in dream homes. I nodded, lifted my coffee cup, sipped quietly. No one asked what I'd been up to. No one noticed the white box under the tree that didn't sparkle, didn't sing, and I didn't offer anything. I watched the room perform. Every glance, every line, so familiar, so automatic. But this year, I wasn't waiting to be seen. I was waiting for my moment, and it was almost here. When the gifts had all been opened, when the coffee had gone lukewarm and the room started to drift into small talk, I reached for the white box. I stood, walked over to Dad Frank, and placed it gently in his hands. He looked surprised, not excited, just mildly puzzled, like he wasn't expecting anything from me. Sophie giggled. "Probably socks," she said. He opened it slowly, not out of care, but out of indifference. Peeling the lid back with quiet hands, inside an envelope, sealed in wax. He broke the seal, unfolded the pages, then paused. His eyes moved once across the page, then again slower. The smile faded. His fingers stiffened. He read the words, and I watched him realize this wasn't just a gift. It was a reckoning. He didn't speak. Not a word, just kept reading, eyes scanning the deed, my name printed clearly, the lake house listed line by line. Then the second page, the forged signature, the legal warning from my attorney. His jaw tensed, color drained from his face, hands trembling just slightly at the edges. Mom Linda leaned over his shoulder, still smiling as she glanced at the page. Then she saw it. The bolded words near the top, the smile faded, slow, like steam disappearing from glass. She turned to me. "Evelyn, what is this?" Her voice cracked, not loud, but enough. I met her eyes. "Calm, steady, exactly what it looks like," I said. And for the first time, neither of them had anything to say back. Mom looked back down at the paper, then at Dad. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. "And You didn't tell me?" It wasn't a question. Her voice broke, not angry, just undone. Sophie clutched her new handbag tighter, like it might protect her. She glanced around the room confused. She didn't know what was happening. No one explained. No one moved. The silence changed. Thicker now, not peaceful, but heavy like air after something breaks. I stood there, hands still at my sides, not dramatic, not angry, just ready. "I won't be sharing the lake house," I said. "Not this time." No reply, no nod, just the sound of paper shifting in Dad's hands as he tried to make it mean something else. Mom stepped back, just one step, but it said everything. Like distance might soften the truth settling in her chest. Her eyes moved from the papers to Dad, then back again. She looked small, smaller than I'd ever seen her. She wasn't angry yet. Anger takes energy. What I saw was older, deeper realization. Sophie didn't say a word. She sat frozen, purse in her lap, like a child gripping a toy during a thunderstorm. She looked from face to face, still waiting for someone to explain, but no one did. And no one would. Because some truths don't need to be spoken to be understood. And in that silence, the performance they'd practiced for years finally fell apart. I stood slowly, smoothed the hem of my sweater. No rush, no drama. Just movement with purpose. No one stopped me. No one asked me to stay. They didn't know what to say, and I no longer needed them to. Dad sat perfectly still, holding the documents like they might dissolve if he moved too fast. His hands had stopped trembling. Now they were just locked in place, tight, unmoving. Mom stood beside him, caught in half a step, a breath she hadn't finished. She looked at him, then at me, then back again, searching for something that had already broken. And me, I just looked at them. Really looked. And I knew the scene was over. I walked to the door. Not rushed, not dramatic, just steady. The cold air leaked through the frame, sharp and honest. a kind of clean I hadn't felt in years. I turned back just once to say one thing, just so we're clear. Mom blinked. Dad didn't move. Sophie held her breath. I won't be giving it back. Not the house, not my name, not the parts of me you used to build something you never planned to share. That was it. No speech, no apology. Then I opened the door and let the cold in like truth returning home. The cold hit my face like something honest. Sharp, clear, unapologetic. I didn't rush to the car, didn't slam the door. I just walked quietly, but with both feet on my own ground. By evening, the snow had started. Soft flakes, steady and slow, fell onto the windshield as I drove away. No calls, no texts, no one ran out after me. And I didn't look back, not once. Some exits don't need closure, just the courage to step through them. And this time, I wasn't walking away to prove a point. I was walking away because I finally could. That night, I sat in an old armchair by the window of the lake house. No music, no voices, just the slow creak of the wood as the wind moved across the siding, a blanket around my shoulders, coffee cooling beside me, snow tapping softly on the glass. The place wasn't perfect, the floors needed work, the chimney smoked when it shouldn't, the thermostat clicked 3 times before doing anything useful. But it was mine, not handed to me, not disguised as help, not wrapped in guilt or quiet expectations. Mine because I had chosen to take it, because I had stopped asking, because I had learned that peace doesn't have to be loud to feel real. I didn't feel triumphant, no rush of pride, no music rising in my chest. It wasn't victory, it was release, like finally exhaling after holding my breath for years without realizing it. I wasn't angry anymore, not tired, not even sad, just still, in a way that felt earned. I thought about calling someone, a friend, a voice outside the family to say it out loud, what I'd found, what I'd done, what I'd taken back, but I didn't. Some stories don't need witnesses. Some healing doesn't want applause. I just sat there, watching the snow gather on the railings, letting silence stay without asking it to explain itself. I didn't know if they'd reach out. Maybe they would. Maybe not. Maybe Mom would call voice heavy with half-truths and carefully timed regret. Maybe Dad would send a job listing again like nothing had happened, like I still needed direction. Maybe Sophie would text a meme pretending we were close in the way she always did when things got too real. But I didn't wait for any of it. I didn't hope. Didn't rehearse what I'd say if they did. I had spent enough of my life reading silence like it might someday turn into care. Now I finally knew silence isn't always absence. Sometimes it's freedom. I wasn't waiting for an apology. I wasn't hoping for closure. And I didn't want reconciliation. Not because I hated them, but because I finally understood what I needed. More than peace was distance. I had drawn a line, not in anger, not in spite, in survival. For the first time, I wasn't stepping back over it, not to keep the peace, not to make it easier, not to prove I could. Some relationships don't end in shouting. They end in stillness when you stop walking toward people who never once turned around. This time, I stayed where I was, and that was enough. The strange part. Now that I owned the one thing they protected the most, I didn't even want it. Not really. The lake house was quiet, plain, a little drafty. The walls needed paint, the windows stuck when they closed, but it didn't matter, because it wasn't about comfort. It wasn't about revenge. It was about knowing I could take it back. The house, my name, my place. Just like they had taken pieces of me year by year, wrapped in silence, tied in guilt, and called it love. This time I took something for myself, and I didn't hand it back. I didn't need a phone call, or a letter, or some late apology years too late to matter. I had found something better than being chosen. I had chosen myself, not loudly, not for attention, just fully, finally. The snow kept falling that night, soft, certain, covering the porch, the steps, the edges of the lake. I watched it settle like peace that doesn't need permission. And if you've ever walked out of a room and never looked back, if you've ever claimed your space without asking for it first, just leave a single dot. I'll know you were here. And maybe you'll know you weren't alone.